Alex was telling me that he moved from you guys both, or Nick, you live in Romania, and Alex, you moved from Romania to Berlin, correct?
Yes.
And yes,
Okay. Okay. So, how did you guys meet?
well, I was on a Facebook forum,
Hmm.
the indie game dev,
Oh, okay.
and I was working on another game back then. It's on hold, and I was bitching a lot because I've been working with another game programmer. I'm an artist. I don't have
Right.
any skill in coding whatsoever,
Okay.
and yeah, I've kind of had to let the project go because I had no programming for it.
Hmm.
And I was a little bit frustrated. And Alex saw some of my posts and really dig the art.
Right.
So yeah, we kind of started from there. I don't know,
Okay.
Alex, something else from your perspective?
It was love at first post.
Well, that's great. That's kind of surprising to see, people get together and collaborate so closely, being obviously from, different places and doing it mostly through Skype, I was reading somewhere, right? Have you
Yeah,
guys
100.
actually have you guys actually met each other like in person?
No, we didn't even saw each other on webcam so far.
No, wow. Okay.
So
So
yeah,
you'll be
we
surprised.
exactly we're keeping it after the game is successful.
There you go. Well, there you go, and then you can celebrate, and maybe one day, if you're successful, you can have a studio together. That'd be kind of cool.
Exactly, exactly.
So, leave it until then.
Yeah,
The new
So,
Blizzard.
say that again.
The new Blizzard.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. Right.
Uh,
Hey, if you want to go that far, sure, why not? So, what led you guys into wanting to make video games in the first place?
Alex, go first, please.
Um, well, I've always liked to create things. Like when I was a child, used to create crossword puzzles when I was at my grandfather's TV or anything.
Hmm. Right.
I've always been creative. If I if I didn't get to be a game developer, I said I would be a stand-up comedian because I also have a disturbing sense of humor.
Okay.
And when I went to high school, my parents got me a computer. Um, Romania isn't known to have a rich economy, so the computer was kind of a major expense for the family. But
What kind of computer was it?
Pentium 4, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, what's a Pentium 4, right?
Right.
No,
And
but
then go ahead.
it was a very big purchase for a family, and there was
Oh,
no
I can
internet.
imagine.
So all I
Right.
had was I had Adobe Flash, which is how most old indie developers start out with.
Right.
And I learned how to do Flash and programming generally very well because I wanted to impress a girl I liked in high school. And it turns out that was a very stupid idea.
Well, you
But
found Nick instead, so it's not too
Yeah,
bad.
and I'm more beautiful.
yes, that is true. Well, I've been living with Flash for the past 10 years professionally, and
Oh, really?
yeah, it got me. I actually wanted to be an indie developer like 10 years ago after I finished college. And the problem is, like Alex, I couldn't find someone serious enough to do games with because the
Right.
artists either were too young and needed they weren't serious. They didn't know how much work it would take. They thought it would be just like a month.
Right. And when
And
you were looking for people to work with at this point, what type of experience did you have yourself in just development? Was it all like independent? You're just all just you?
well, I was the only programmer, and I'm the only programmer now.
Okay.
But I need the kind. I had a let's make a new MMO RPG type mentality at the time
Right.
because
All
I
right.
thought that I got what it takes. But
Yeah.
no, the artist didn't couldn't handle it. And I kind of rage quit after that. So for the like 8 years, I didn't work in games. I worked in pretty much everything else,
Right.
ads, video editing software, chat software, everything but games. And
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, 3 years ago, I got a job at King Games in Bucharest.
Mm-hmm.
It's like makers of Candy Crush and many other
Oh,
uh,
okay. Right.
mobile games. And they closed the studio down 2 years ago because cutbacks and whatnot.
Right.
And they said whoever wants to go to Berlin to continue the current projects, because we're moving everything there, let's talk. And it was a dream of mine to go to Germany because I like the language and the country.
Right.
Plus, it's a major strategic um, location in Europe because pretty much every conference and event is an hour or 2 hours away with a plane.
Oh, really?
And Gamescom Europe used to be in Germany, in Köln,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it got canceled the
Oh, wow.
same day I left job to become a indie developer.
No
So
way,
that's
really.
yeah. Also, Steam Direct was announced in the same day.
That what was announced the same day?
Steam Direct,
Oh, really? Oh,
they're
wow.
closing down Greenlight and Steam Direct comes. So yeah,
Right. So, what was your experience at that studio? Just being there for the few years, and I mean, what was the type of work you were doing there? Were you mainly doing programming, or were you a designer?
I've always been a programmer and doing
Okay.
side things at the same time because all the disciplines intersect in many places.
Right.
So everybody that works at a game is also a designer
Right.
by
Yeah.
choice or implication. Like the
Sure.
artists always work with designers. Plus, we have one or two game designers, so they need a lot of people to brainstorm with, and you know.
Right. And
Um,
and did you like your time there?
It was very interesting. I thought that I would have a lot to learn coming to an actual game development company, but it turns out that it's not very different with other types of software. Like it's a interface, buttons.
Right. But did it seem like, in the workplace that everybody was really like excited about what they were working on, or were the type of apps and games you were working on just kind of mainly trying to get everybody together to focus on one thing so it wasn't too much excitement, or how was the energy?
No energy, everybody depressed and slow and
Really?
fuck this game. Well, the kind of games that King or Blizzard or Valve or any of these large companies make take
Yeah.
years. That's
Yeah.
maybe 6 months of excitement, brainstorming, going early to work and going late from work. And then you
Right.
get the tiredness, you get the repetitive, the days blend together because it's the same thing over and over. And
Yeah.
myself, after 2 years, me being the last person hired in the team,
Oh, yeah.
uh, I start to feel the same. And yeah, delays hurt the morale quite a bit. And right after we launched the game, it's called Alphabet Saga, and it was a Scrabble and match 3 type game.
Mm-hmm.
After we launched it, they closed down the studio, which is a huge blow in morale for everybody involved.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And for me, at least, I got to work on Candy Crush Jelly here in Berlin,
Oh,
which was
okay.
a totally different project, different code. I stopped working in Flash and worked in C++, which I
Right.
hate with the bottom of my heart.
So I'm guessing you don't use C++ now.
No, I chose Unity and I'm gonna stick with it forever.
So how do you like working with you use C Sharp through Unity, correct?
Yeah, C Sharp is pretty easy. It's pretty similar to Flash. You don't get as much control as you would with C++,
Right.
but at the same time, you don't care. Like I stopped caring, whether I use spaces or tabs, what
Right,
computer
because you can
language
go,
I
be
use.
a little messier with C Sharp, right?
It's not that it's messy. It's just I don't care. It's not important. The player does not know what language you use. The player
Sure.
does not care. Nick uses Photoshop or Illustrator or GIMP or
And
whatever.
right, and you're not trying to impress that girl anymore, so why even,
No, I got married.
Oh, okay, great. Well, that's awesome. What is we'll get to you, Nick. I don't want you to be,
Yeah,
sitting
no
out,
problem.
but what does your wife think about, the game you making video games?
Well, a little bit of my backstory. I met my wife on the first day of college,
Uh-huh.
and I thought that after I did the first class in college, I realized how shitty it is, and I
Mhm.
wanted to drop out after the first day. I just didn't see myself, but I met her, and okay, I gotta stick around, I guess. And this
Hey,
was 10 years
wow.
ago. Yeah.
Well, there you
Um,
go.
Eventually, she became a tester for a antivirus company. And when
Oh,
we
yeah.
moved to Bucharest, she said that I want to do a career change because testing is a dead-end job for me. And we
Oh,
discussed,
okay.
and her childhood passion was to draw.
Oh, yeah.
And I saw an opportunity that eventually I would quit corporate life and become an indie with her.
Oh, wow.
And, that would be an ideal. Couples doing indie games are an ideal setup because you just have a more intimate communication and, no judgments, no
Sure.
incompatibilities.
Well, I don't know about judgment, but but no,
No,
that's really cool.
yeah,
You'd be
after
the
10
power
years of
couple.
marriage, there's nothing, you don't have any more problems. You don't have any, I don't know, misconceptions or anything.
Right, right. Well, that's
But
that's great to
then,
have that relationship.
yeah, the initial plan was for me to quit King and become a developer with her. But
Hmm.
then I met Alex uh,
I
earlier
stole
than the date I thought, yeah, and he stole my heart.
Ah,
exactly.
her replacement. Well, let's go to you, Nick, or the other Alex.
The other Alex, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
so what exactly made you want to get into video games and go on this crazy adventure and being an indie with the other Alex?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, it was a crazy adventure. It's a hell of a ride. I don't know if I would have knew back then how it was, if I
Hmm.
would still doing it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
He's a big pain in the ass, isn't he?
exactly, exactly. It's a lifestyle, man. I mean,
Right.
it's you can't say that it will ever become a job if you're doing it with passion. It's
Sure.
something that you do like fucking daily. It's like you wake up, you do this, you go to sleep and dream about doing the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah, and it all started like in 2010 for me, like strictly working as a game developer, game designer.
Hmm.
I was back then in my childhood interested more in creating than in art, than in making games. I had
Right.
no idea that making games it's something that you can do with no money.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, in
yeah,
this
that
day and age, yeah, sure.
exactly, and that wasn't the mentality for Romania back then, and it just started to grow up today. I mean, we are a few guys here and there working as indie developers, and um, I don't know. The mentality is that um, it's so far behind, like compared to America or any other big country, and
Right.
so not knowing this stuff back then, I had to like draw a lot, make some homemade cartoons and whatnot. I found Flash later on, as Alex did.
Hmm.
I started losing weeks and weeks drawing stickman figures fighting, and then not saving the project or
Oh
Flash
God.
bugging down and losing the files.
Oh
And
man.
Yeah, but it was fun. I was doing it strictly as a hobby, just to lose some time, you know.
Right.
And after that, I started making T-shirts and I don't know, comic books and whatnot, because I like the idea of creating.
Right.
And back in high school, I remember some guy told me that, well, I have a friend of a friend that needs an artist to work at a game. So then that was the first time I actually worked on a indie game,
Oh,
and it
really?
was
Okay.
fucking it was fucking amazing because it's better than a movie, it's better than a book. I mean, you really can express yourself, and that was
Sure.
amazing. Yeah, that was amazing to me. And
Oh,
since
that's great.
2010, I kept working as an indie game developer, sometime full time, sometime after work hours, and I made every possible mistake as a game designer. Yeah, yeah.
Right. Well, that's
And
okay. You know, you got to make mistakes to make the right ones, right?
exactly. And this game right now with Alex, it's my 12th project, I believe.
Oh,
My
really?
yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I've said it was a hell of a ride. And
Sure.
yeah, it's something that you need to love to do in the first place, because if you won't, you'll quit like in the second day.
Right, and I would imagine both you guys have probably thought like, "Oh, I should just give up and do something else that's more, grounded." And I know it. A lot of people have those, feelings, but if you
To
keep
be
going back to it, why
to be
stop?
honest, I never really thought that,
Oh, really?
because yeah, honestly, because it's something that, however frustrating it might become,
Right,
it's still something I do with pleasure, and it's fun.
right,
And it's a hobby, even if it's a full-time hobby. I can't call it a hobby right now because it became work. uh,
right. Now, do you,
yeah
you guys do this full time now?
Now, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
We're pulling
Wow.
triple shifts.
Say that
Yeah.
again.
We're pulling triple shifts.
Oh, right. I could imagine. Jeez. Well, how's it looking? Like, you have this. Let's talk about the game. You have the Underground King. And is this the first game you guys have worked on together?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you been working on it so far?
uh,
Well, I came into the project later. He started with another programmer in a mobile uh, format in the beginning, and when I came in the project, we switched to a PC, and we're still transitioning from a PC from a mobile UI and gameplay to
yeah.
PC type.
And
uh,
what was the reason for the change?
well, first of all, this game was initially started in 2014, I guess. I
Okay.
made a small sketch of it, like drawings on napkins and stuff like that.
Right. Sure.
And it had few iterations, because back then it was inspired by the Voodoo People song of Prodigy, the video of the Voodoo People song.
Oh yeah. Oh. I know. I'm familiar with it. Yes.
Yeah, the guys running blindfolded in a forest with
Yeah.
booby traps and things like that. Yeah. And I
Right.
love the idea of being a manager of something that crazy. It was like mind blowing to me. And the fun stuff was that the guy I've worked in 2014, the programmer back then, sent me a weird link. I don't know if it was real or not, but the idea of it just blew my mind. Uh, there were some sort of runners doing this life and death scenario, like
Mm-hmm.
for real, somewhere
Right.
in whatever town. And yeah, that was the main inspiration for the game. And then Alex came. It had some sort of mobile vibe. I wanted to port it on mobile, and we said, "Fuck it, let's strip it down and build it again, back up with both our perspective."
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, now do you guys feel like now that you've switched to the PC that you're implementing a lot more that you would have on an app game?
It's different, like on mobile, on a tablet. We wanted to do it on a tablet because you have a lot more surface for everything. You need to keep it simple. The buttons need to be, large enough for people to tap, but then
Right.
small enough so they don't take the entire screen. And each platform comes with its do's and don'ts.
Mm-hmm.
But as it is right now, it's very hard to publish a game on mobile platform and live off it, be successful.
Right, because you have these like streamlined like apps you have to go through, or I guess companies, like for instance, like Apple, you have to pretty much get an okay with it, but then they have only so much face for other people's products that you're really competing a lot. So I could totally see what you're talking about, but
Yeah.
It's so although you have like in 2016 you have half of the games ever released in a single year last year. Most of them are like shovelware or clones or Hello World type applications. So it's
oh
not that
really?
you're in competition because if you have a good product, if it's polished, if you put your heart and soul into it, it may not be it may not be Half-Life 3, right?
Right.
But it is something that you could be decently paid for and it be enough for you to live and finance the next game. The
Oh
problem
yeah.
is that there's a flood of applications and there's no universal judgment that your game is more worthy to appear in front of people than
Yeah.
someone else's, even
Sure,
if that
and
game is shit and yours good.
exactly. And you know what? It actually really ends up to where, if you've, like you said, if you have made a polished game and if it's, and even if it's, stripped down and very simple, if people can just jump on it and play, then that, gains so much momentum quickly. And I think that's kind of how everybody's mentality is today, is they kind of expect to be able to be playing a game that is a lot shorter experience than some AAA titles, because that's the, kind of the most we've seen out there, which I think some of the greatest games have been, shorter ones. And, so I think the time you guys are getting into this and making this game, couldn't be a better time. And you have so many platforms to not develop on, but, put it out there on. So, I mean, you have Steam and good old games, and of course you have the two console like PSN and the Xbox store, and so yeah,
That's
yeah,
a that's a pretty tall order to convert it to consoles actually,
yeah, I
because
bet.
the dev kit is expensive and um, you have to do a lot of politics with console publishers.
Oh, really?
What we are thinking about is a new web-based platform called Air Console, developed here in
Oh, yeah.
Germany.
Oh,
It's
really?
basically you use the games page as the game itself, and you use your mobile phone as a controller.
Oh, really?
So it's like a web-based console mode,
Oh,
uh,
interesting.
and it's in HTML, so it's very lightweight. And you have thousands of games that are free to play. It's ad supported,
Oh,
and
okay.
we thought to strip down our racing part of the game without any math, without procedural generated items and all that stuff.
Right.
Just the racing part of the game, and launch it on Air Console. Then we also target Switch because it's again it's the game is very intimate to play with. It's not that on TV with a controller in the hand.
Sure.
Thought to be. But
Right.
first,
Oh,
we're
okay.
gonna release it on PC, Mac, and Linux because it's enough.
Yeah.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, you'll do plenty with just those, systems. So, you should be all right. But
Yeah, we hope so.
so, I have a quick question, and just because I think it's a question that kind of shows how far your imagination goes, and kind of uh, what the basis of what your kind of like skill set is. And it's just that if you had unlimited amount of resources to create a game, if you didn't have to worry about how much money you're going to make back or what consoles you have to support, what kind of game would you guys create?
Oh, that's a good question.
You guys have like a dream project or anything like that you've ever thought of, or
maybe Witcher 4?
So you guys are going to develop the new Witcher?
Yeah. That will be something original.
I have a different perspective. So I don't believe in virtual reality as it is at all.
Oh, no? Okay.
No, I saw too many people at conventions fall and hurt themselves to put any faith in it.
Okay.
What I like and hope in my lifetime to experience is like direct computer to brain connections. So you enter the computer in your sleep or whatever, you're paralyzed and you control an avatar in the game. And then you have like time warping, so you can live for months within the game with seconds passing in real life. And you said unlimited resources, so let's assume that exists.
Well, hey, that's you've thought about it a lot, I think.
Yeah,
it's actually something that eventually, if I do make the next Blizzard type empire, I want to develop the technology, or at least contribute to the technology.
Hey, well, there you go. That's what you can do, you know.
But being honest now, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. Like, this game wasn't toned down in any way because maybe it wouldn't sell or crap like that.
Sure. Okay. Good.
Yeah, it was like the initial idea. Not the initial idea, but we were honest to the game design, and we said, "Fuck it! If people won't buy it, we will still make it because it's our game, and it will be first of all fun for us."
Right.
And if there wouldn't be any Kickstarter support or anything like that, we would pay it from our own money, and we will still make it somehow, because that's the mentality that I believe we both have, or at least I have. I'm not doing things first and foremost for the people. I'm doing it for me as a gamer. You know, what I would like to play and what I would love to see most out of a game. That's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's a great thing to be able to have. Would you think if you were ever, for instance, offered a job from like a AAA studio to do, you know, art and design, would you take it, or are you just in a really comfortable place right now?
For the money right now, yeah.
But $150,000 a year. How about that?
Yeah. Why not? I would belly dance for that whole. But no, this is honestly what I like to do as an indie. I wouldn't do for any other company. If we can do it now and have a little bit of success and then work another year on another project, we would do that, and that's it.
Right. And then Alex, so you've kind of gone through that kind of the corporate mentality of previous jobs. So, I mean, do you feel the same, I would imagine?
I have a huge ass problem with authority, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay.
When I went to college, I expected to learn everything I need to know about computer science, because all I had was like high school education in programming, basic stuff. And I thought that, oh man, my brain is going to explode from all this knowledge. But it was stupid bullshit, and I really got pissed. And then when I went into corporate, I thought, these people actually do the software. They talk with the clients, and no, you had people without any passion, people who only cared about the money side, and people who just 9 to 5 and nothing else. And I was disappointed, especially in management. Bad decisions.
Right.
It's good enough. fuck it, ship it, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And how I work right now is, I'm not saying it's good enough. I'm just gonna say we don't have any more time for it, because after we launch it eventually, and we will, I'm still gonna work on it and fix my big ass to-do list, which I have.
Right.
Yeah.
All the bugs, all the shortcuts we had to take, all the workarounds, I'm gonna fix them so I can, I can make sure that I made something I'm proud of.
Right. Well, it's great that you've had the education too to be able to, learn and know how to program and be able to do that, especially as, two guys from, Romania. I think that's, I'm not saying that's a small task whatsoever, because I think, coding and programming itself is such a huge thing to have to learn. And if there was someone thinking about, getting into, let's say, the game industry or just making video games in general, what do you think your advice to them would be? And this can go for both you and Alex and Nick.
Don't do it. No, my advice would be stupid, but be stupid as fast as you can. Like, try everything that you want to try, just to hit those mistakes faster.
Right.
And if you don't love it, and I really mean it, if you don't love it, don't do it, because it will impact your mental state a lot.
Right.
I mean, if you don't feel like that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, you will practically get married to this thing, making games.
Right.
Yeah. I actually failed doing this. It's a very simple lesson that right now I take for granted, but nobody told me at the time. The only way to fail at this or any other thing, actually, is to quit, which I did, and thankfully they pulled me back in.
So you quit once before, and now you're per se working again.
Doing my first job, my first game as a MMORPG, multiplayer online.
Right.
That was a very stupid idea, and if I had known at the time, I would have, made a Flappy Bird type game, then make something a little bigger, release it, and so on, so on.
So you went too big, you're saying?
Yeah, I was too big and too stupid at the time.
Right. Well, that could be a great lesson, though. I mean, you thought you could do all of this, and then you fell right on your feet and realized, well, I have to do this in order to do what you're doing now. But I mean, if you probably didn't have that lesson, if someone told you exactly what you're saying now, you never know if it would have snapped the way it did when you personally recognize your mistake. So. I mean, don't say you failed, because the little mistakes do count, and later on.
I failed because I quit. That's the only thing. That's the only failure I recognize of me doing. I should have just kept at it, even if I stopped trying to be an indie and have a full-time job. I should have worked on the side.
Well, it's not actually like quitting. It's like taking a short break, because I also did that. I worked at Ubisoft for 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I kind of quit in a way, but it wasn't really quitting, because when I went home, I drew a sketch of something or thought of another idea and things like that. And it's okay to do that, because you need to have some downtimes. You need to kind of gather your strengths and come back in strong again and do it.
Yeah.
Right.
One disadvantage of growing up in a, let's say, behind the times country like Romania is that we don't have any colleges or courses in game development.
Right.
And at the time, the community was also very spread in Romania. Now it's way better. We have like Facebook groups. We also started having a conference, a countrywide conference for game development.
Right.
And back then, I didn't have access to the necessary resources or guidance. What I would recommend for someone who wants to go into the game development now is first go into corporate, because they have it all. They have,
Right.
the latest software. I don't know, if you want to go into 3D programming, they have the best techniques. They have everything. It doesn't actually matter which company you go into exactly, because people change from company to company and the information gets mixed.
Right.
You also have like Reddit and Stack Overflow now, which you can find all the information you need. I found a lot of tutorials on YouTube for basic things, like from Hello World applications to launching a game on Android or iPhone, whatever, from start to finish, I mean.
Right.
We also get here in Berlin, every 2 months there's a little meetup where there's some presentations and some playtests. And every now and again we hear a lawyer or a doctor that decided to go into the game development.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, and they said that they find it very easy to switch to this domain, which is game development, from being a lawyer. And
That's
they
bullshit.
Right?
That's so much bullshit. It's easy. Come on, dude.
I don't know. That's what they say.
Well, I've actually heard the same thing, that Greg Rice, which is the I can't think of his exact title for Double Fine, but he's a producer, I think, and he was actually going to medical school and realized that he's always been a fan of video games and just thought he'd try it out. So he got hired at Double Fine, and now he's been doing it for about 5-6 years. But he's a guy that has this whole background of being a doctor, practically graduated already. And yeah, I think that's kind of like a really odd thing. I don't understand the connection of kind of like you were saying, kind of like having that. I don't know exactly how to explain, but like going through that kind of corporate side of things and being able to realize like, oh, it's it's kind of easy to make video games because it's the same thing. It's making video games. It's like being a surgeon now, but
but what I'm saying, that you have access to the resources. It's not
sure.
It's not you don't pour your knowledge into your head. You still have to work your ass off. You still have to make all the mistakes. But you have access to the resources way easier than we used to have it.
Right.
Plus, after so many games that rose and fell, you have thousands of postmortems that appear, and you can find them on YouTube easily, and learn from other people's mistakes and their experiences, which is better because it cuts your time even shorter on making mistakes, since you avoid other people's. For example, pixel games right now. There's a flood of pixel games, and they're not selling as well as they used to. Even though you have games like Stardew Valley or Undertale that are unique, and the game design is very delicious, and that's why they're selling. You have other games that are like pixel platformers, and there are just too many of them.
Yeah, well, I think there is kind of in the last 5 or 10 years, I mean, we've had like a huge flood of these pixel games, and you have to realize, there's fads, there's styles that come in and go out, and the next big thing will probably be, again, open world, great looking AAA graphic type games that everybody's trying to make, but not everybody can be successful, because then there's going to be a huge flood of that. So, I mean, you do have to look at the market and what works and everything. But going back to just getting into game development, like I've seen this kind of I see this thing where there is no really education straightforward for being a game designer or a game developer. There's really just like a workaround. Like if you listen to people in the industry, they're like, oh, well, I did modding on the side and I went for computer science. But computer science could be, many things. I mean, they're not going to teach you how to be a designer or code for video games, in college, being, going for a computer science degree. So it's for the people that are trying to get in the game industry now that it's, such a huge and competitive world for video games. They're realizing that they can do it as a career at a young age, but they're seeking out that education. And a lot of the education, even in America here, they don't have because there's no degrees for it,
Here
So,
in Germany, they have colleges with degrees in.
oh, really?
Yeah, I was surprised. We actually went, me and a couple of guys, we went to a college of game design, and part of their semestral task for their grade was make a game and launch it on Steam.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they would get judged based on the comments, excluding
Wow.
trolls. They would get grades based on the comments and feedback of the people involved. And I was
No
like,
way.
oh my
Wow.
God.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And the students kept the rights for the game. So if the games made money, the students would get the money.
That's nice.
Really? Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I wish I could hear more of that around here. There's a college I go to, and they just started a game design degree. And what I mean by just started is, I mean, literally like last year, they put this degree in line, and so it's kind of interesting to see where it's going to go and everything. What's going to happen, if that's going to grow, if more colleges are going to offer that, because I do think it's like a great need. I think these colleges have to recognize that it's not all about film and movies anymore, and being able to get director degrees and stuff. I think video games is huge.
Yeah.
So
It's a start. It's a start.
yeah. So would you think going for, since you Alex went to college for computer science, right? And do you think that's a great way of getting a start for game design or creating games?
Well, I went to computer college in a city called Iași, which was very close to my birth city.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what they teach you there is making websites or mobile applications. I won't say you learn anything, to be honest. Each semester you have a different teacher in a different computer language. It's like when you learn art, you also learn the history of, I don't know, painting, which is not necessarily going to help you in your day-to-day life, but it's something.
Right.
Personally, if I had the choice to go back, I wouldn't have gone to college. I would have made more mistakes on my own, or tried to get hired faster to learn the basics faster.
Do you think if they had a more of like for instance, a game design degree rather than a computer science degree, that you would take it and do that, or do you like your experience?
It's we learn mostly theory. Like we learn the databases, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't learn SQL or anything. We learned the theory of database, like relationships and information storage, which is not, it doesn't have any direct practical use. And that's the thing I had the most problem with, because every written or, show me the program you made, I got maximum grade on, but anything theory, like please tell me the theorem of blah, 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 I always failed it, because I'm a very practical person. If I don't put my hands on it and make it, it's a waste of my time.
Are you very good in math, if you mind me asking?
No.
Oh, no? Okay. That's kind of strange then, because so many people use, programming as like, oh, well, you need to be really good at math in order to do it. And I mean, from my experiences, looking at it, I can't see where it like really matters, because I think you're, telling a computer to do something, but it does not really,
It's a computer language. You tell the computer what to do. Like even the words that the symbols we use, like if, else, while, that's like English.
Right.
Okay, every computer language differs. We have some that uses stars and symbols and parentheses and shit, and some that are very literal, like load file file.xml, whatever.
Sure.
You tell the program what to do. It's not math. It's more like
Right.
writing a living book.
Right. Well, why I have so many questions about it is because my girlfriend's actually wants to get into a computer science degree, and she's really into the whole programming thing right now, and it's something very new to her, and so I'm very curious about it too, and how you get your foot in the door through, of course, having the education to back it, and so I'm kind of scared for her because I know programming is quite a thing to take on, but
But
I bet
best
you
of
feel the
luck.
same, Nick, right?
Yeah.
You're
I've tried
probably
it and I hated it.
oh yeah,
Absolutely.
oh
100.
god. So stick with the art and design, right?
Yeah, I've been sticking with pretty much everything because when I worked in 2011 or something,
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of programmers that worked for a week or two and then blew it. They
Right,
went to do something else, and I kind of said, screw it, I will do it on my own.
right,
And I learned pretty much everything: music, sound, video editing, animation, blah blah blah, everything. And I kind of struggled a lot with coding because I'm getting so bored looking at those lines of text. I can't focus at all.
oh right.
So I
I'm the
said,
same way.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Asking the question that you said earlier with the art school, with
Mhm.
the school,
Right.
I did the art school, and nobody gives a fuck, man. I mean, honestly, there's no teacher that will tell you something more than you need to know for
Right.
a high school or something for a
Sure.
university. And you need to learn by yourself, and that's what I did that's what I did with art, that's what I did with game design, that's what I did with everything, because if you like it, you'll do it either way. And
Right.
if you have a teacher that will pay attention, then you're the luckiest man or woman alive.
Right. And did you get a degree in art?
Yeah, I
Okay.
finished it, and it was a piece of cake. I mean, we had one
Sure.
hour a week or something like that,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah,
Jeez.
nobody paid any attention to me. It was like, yeah, you're here, I'm taking the money, well, go home, have fun, whatever.
Right. So it's pretty much for the certificate and not for really the
Exactly.
experience then.
Yes.
Right. All right. Well, okay, great. Well, thank you for answering all those questions, because I think, school is so important. I mean, college is so important these days because so many companies look at your resume and want to see that. Of course, the experience as well. But
Yeah,
Yes.
so
but
many people. Go
it's
ahead.
different from America to Europe because here we don't pay for college, or at least not $1 million like you do in America.
Right. Right. Yeah, here you
Um,
have the community colleges and then of course the universities, but you got to have a brain to get into those too. So
Yeah.
when I went to college, we had like 800 people in my year, and at the end, when we actually graduated and got our diploma, we were around 70.
Oh
So
my
it's like
god. Are you
only
kidding?
10%. Yeah, no, I'm not.
No, the same
Uh,
was in art school.
yeah,
The
the
same thing.
first in the first semester, half of the people drop out because they made a mistake or I don't know, for one reason or another, had to enroll there. There are several types of computer science. So there's like a computer science college more focused on hardware than software
Right.
for actual computers, the circuitry of it. And some people transfer back and forth like that. But yeah, about 70 people when I
Right.
finished.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, here the college I'm going to is a community college, and what that means is it's pretty much you don't like anybody of any age can obviously go to college and pay for it, or of course get funding from the government if you if you pass. Anyways, not getting into all of that, but
Yeah.
the dropout rate is like huge, and it's like it's not like it's like a bad school or anything. It's just the fact that people sometimes take degrees that they know they're not going to finish, and it's kind of it's sad, but it's the reality too, and so I don't know. I
Here,
mean,
here
go
in
ahead.
Europe, they ask for not everybody asks for computer science degree. Like the international companies ask for it because it's very easy to ask proof of competency. But most people, most companies ask in the job offer computer science degree or equivalent. And equivalent might mean a year or two of a different job.
Right.
So college is not that important in Europe because they have so many alternatives, so many. Like here in Germany, for example, you have an apprenticeship, which is a government recognized training course,
Oh
which
yeah.
is equivalent to doing college, even better because it's you and the master, and they
Oh
like teach you
really?
directly. Yeah,
Oh, that's so strange. That's so different.
yeah, but who cares how you got your education, right? As long as you have a
Yeah.
proof or
Yeah.
Skill.
can prove it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here it's like with the big companies. If you just look at their the applications or their jobs for the company, they say um, like this degree with like 4 years of or two shipped AAA titles, and you're like thinking like, okay, well then I gotta stop looking at the companies that are really big because they're asking for all this experience. So you go to the smaller companies and they say, all right, only about one AAA title, and you're like, okay, now I gotta look at a smaller, maybe an independent studio, let me see, and it still is asked for that degree and that experience. And it's like, well then how the hell do you get into the game industry if you need to ship something? So
Well, just so you know, it's just a front. I mean,
right.
I never showed my degree where I
Oh
work.
no.
Yeah, yeah. And they only care if you have the right skill to do it. And the degree is more for law stuff, whatever.
It's like confirmation.
Yeah, yeah. They are covering their asses in a way.
Right, yeah. So do you think it's mainly based on like the self-taught experience that, for instance, like you guys making a game together, let's say this was your first thing you've ever done, you're, 20 years old, and, you're making your first game. Do you think that this experience you're having right now is more positive than it would be to, for instance, get like a master's in computer science or game design or something like that?
If the game was successful,
Do you think that plays a big part on getting hired?
yeah, not in getting hired, but in there was an example. I don't know, the guy who made Stanley's Parable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He had success with his first game, and that's a huge mistake because if you do it from the first try, it's a fluke, and you won't repeat it again. You'll
Right.
have a harder time having success with the first game. But having success with the first game will surely hire you to a larger company. Like, for example, I don't know, you're going to Ubisoft or EA or whatever. If you show them, even if you made something on mobile, like I did this thing, I had initiative, and say that you love all they did. I love your games. Your games are the
Right.
best, EA. Your stuff is amazing.
Right.
And then you're hired. Of course, you need to have also the skill for that particular job. And that skill
Right.
you can learn by yourself. I mean, I don't know. It's not that hard. You just
Right.
need.
You just have to have the passion. It has to be what you
Exactly.
want to do. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Well, I'm.
In King Bucharest, we had a game designer who got hired solely on the fact that he had the game review channel on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, and he had like a couple of hundred views per video
They
because
were
it was in
buying.
Romanian.
They were buying his audience, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's like 200 people per
Oh,
video.
okay. Okay.
But he made very in-depth. It was in Romanian. It was for Romanian public, so he didn't have a lot of views.
Oh,
And
okay.
he had such in-depth study of the games that it was enough for him to qualify to work. And
Really?
he acted as a game designer to not point out mistakes, but patch up the places where game design wasn't fun or it was too hard to understand. More like a debugger of game design kind of situation.
Right.
If he made a review on that game, what faults would he find? Right, that kind of
Sure.
mentality.
Right. I guess that's kind of what a designer is. You know, you got to point out what's good and bad pretty
Not
much to
not
what.
necessarily. I found that there are many types of designers, and most of them didn't start out as game designers. For example, I had a very good friend who wanted to become a translator, and he knows like 6 or 7 languages apart
Wow.
from English and Romanian. Yeah, he wanted, and he switched to game design, and he found that creating the stories and characters and events like lore,
Mm-hmm.
he found it very easy and very fun, and it gives the games he works on a lot of depth. So he's a narrative game designer.
So
Oh, wow.
practically, kids, you need to learn something, and then you will be a game designer.
Hey, there you go.
It
Simple as
almost doesn't matter what skills you have or what you like. Like
Exactly.
the doctor that wants to become a game designer, he could make a game like Surgeon Simulator, you know, the game.
that. Right.
Or if you're a physics teacher, you can make a Goat Simulator for, you know,
Yeah.
Sure.
it's fun. You can take any discipline and somehow integrate it in a game.
Right. Well, you know, I think that's nicely put and kind of, you know, helps out anybody listening to realize, you know, what they need to do and what they need to know if they want to make video games. And it's pretty much saying, you know, just want to make video games, want to be really into them, you know.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's great. Well, so what do you guys, you know, expect from the Underground King, and what's coming that we can all, you know, look forward to?
Well, right now we're working on a demo. We have on the 23rd, like next Tuesday. I have a playtest here in Berlin for that event that happens every 2 months. And after that, we're going to finish our Kickstarter page because on the 6th of June, we will launch a Kickstarter campaign.
And our Greenlight, Steam Greenlight.
And launch it on Steam Greenlight. Make a public demo for people to enjoy, give feedback.
All right, great. And anybody can access that right from your website, right?
We're going to put on our website, on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All
And
right, well, great.
a month later, we're gonna hopefully we'll get greenlit by then, and start actually developing on Steam.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Well, I'm really happy for you guys, and I really look forward to the Underground King. And you know, I'm gonna stand by here and, you know, play the demo as soon as I get my hands on it. And so, you know, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast and, you know, supporting me and, you know, what I'm doing. And, you know, so I really appreciate it and had a lot of fun talking to you guys.
The same here. Thank you a lot for having us. It was nice to be here. And see you soon.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
later, guys.